look at the general structure of the personal statement. Now, this is a recommended structure, but it's also quite a traditional structure. So don't worry if your personal statement differs from this, and if you want to alter it from this, then that is certainly possible. This is just a very traditional personal statement structure, and if you are developing it for the first time, or if you are unsure, then definitely follow this structure, I would say. Now, you're looking to have essentially a few key elements. It might be that you have more paragraphs than just these 4 paragraphs. That's absolutely fine. But these are generally the key elements, and in this order that we recommend focusing on. So I'm not going to read through each one. You can read through the description of each here, but we might go through some of them in a bit more depth. So, very much like an essay, you will have an introduction and a conclusion. You want to show your own reading or research into the subject and show your notable experiences and achievements that you have that are relevant to that subject. One thing I recommend you bear in mind is that the admissions officer who will be reading your personal statement will have read many personal statements and will be in the process of having to read a lot of personal statements. It depends on the course and how many people they have on it, but generally speaking, they will divide up the personal statements and the applications between a number of admissions officers, so they have a very heavy caseload. They have a lot to read through, and they will probably spend maximum about 5 minutes reading your personal statement, if it's interesting, usually less. So what your job really is to do is to make it an interesting introduction, to try and grab their attention, to make it easy to read as well, to make it direct. That doesn't mean use simple language. You should still use interesting vocabulary and subject-specific vocabulary. But you definitely want to make it engaging and easy for them to read, because the easier you can make their job, then the more likely you are to be put at the top of the pile of your applications and of personal statements. So let's take a look at a few different points. The introduction should be engaging. So essentially, you want to make sure that you hook them, essentially, that you show how you are unique or how you are passionate about your subject. Lots of different ways of doing this, and it depends on the student entirely how they want to do it. I would recommend steering away from humor. There are some students who have done this, and I have seen it done to good effect, but it's very hard to do, and it depends very much on who is reading your personal statement. So my recommendation would to steer clear of trying to use humor or trying to make anybody laugh in your personal statement, but you do want it to be engaging at the very start. To give you an example, I read a personal statement the other day of a student who started with at age 12, I was almost hit by a car when I was cycling down the road. And that led into how they developed an LED watch for improving cyclist visibility, and how that began their passion for engineering. That's just one example of how you want it to have quite an engaging start to catch the reader's imagination. You really want each paragraph to try and flow into the next. By that, I mean using discourse markers like firstly, secondly, or using additionally, however, but also in terms of content, you want them to try and lead smoothly into one another. And lastly, the conclusion should end with a strong, conclusive statement. What do I mean by this? I mean that you shouldn't tail off with a weak statement with anything which perhaps should be included earlier in your personal statement. You shouldn't use any open-ended sentences either. You want to have it end with a strong statement of who you are or why you want to study at the university. Okay, so I hope you've had a chance to read through the description for each element, because there are some important elements here for each section. I don't think I'll go through the many key details, because I think we'll go through them later, or the key ones we'll go through later anyway. Okay, so the last point then here is this paragraph, the example here, is really about setting up the main theme. So this part saying you need to have a main theme in your personal statement that shows who you are and why you want to study the subject. Here's an example of that. So ensuring the construction of buildings meet humanity's changing needs and complement our natural world is a driving force behind my passion for architecture. So this is the theme statement, and it shows that this person wants to study architecture because they really care about having good buildings that work with the human needs and that work with the natural world, that complement nature. Okay. And then lastly, each paragraph should have a topic sentence. So this means that it should be very clear from reading the first sentence of the paragraph what this paragraph is about. So in the case of reading and research, it might be I was fascinated by Spiller's book on the nature of engineering, and you'd have the name of the text in quotation marks, and you would obviously have the author's name referenced correctly with a capital letter at the start. So each paragraph should very clearly show what you're talking about. Okay, let's move on then from structure. Now,